So we are back, and today we're going to be diving into part 2 of Love is Blind Season 9. We're moving on into the next set of episodes. If you guys would like to check out my very first video of this season, I'll link that in the corner for you to check out, because you're going to need the details for the rest of these episode recaps to make sense. Real quick, I want to say thank you guys so much for showing that video so much love. I really appreciate it. Now, we left off with the couples getting ready to leave their vacation in Mexico, and they're now going to be living with each other for the next few weeks, leading up to their individual wedding days. And they're also going to be meeting each other's family and friends here and there too. So here were our couples: Anton and Allie, Edmund and Calibria, Joe and Madison, Jordan and Megan, and Nick and Annie. So now that the couples are back from Mexico, they're settling into their temporary living situation, but things with some of them are already kind of iffy, even before meeting their friends and family. Annie finally admits that she has a tendency of being overly emotional and, in her words, very passionate about Nick, who she's really only known for about a week at this point. A little crazy in my opinion, but let's continue. Now, things are still going downhill with Joe and Madison as expected when Joe tells her that his family is coming over. She's actually pretty excited about it, but his reaction to her excitement is really bizarre. It seemed like he wanted her to be more fearful about the whole thing and also feel scared about her family meeting him and vice versa. This man was getting on her because she didn't show that she was worried or was kind of terrified about things not going well. And it was just mad weird. He says it was because it made her appear more human, and I was really just as or even more confused than Madison was in that moment. He was just finding things to disagree on and start arguments for no reason, and he's kind of like the king of putting his foot in his mouth at this point. Jordan shows Megan his place, which, like he said in the pods, is pretty small. So they start looking for new places that would be a little more comfortable for them and his son. Anton and Allie are trying to figure out how to adjust to being together. They both work nights. They have breakfast together the first night. But it does sound like Anton is just a little worried about her going back to school and how open she is about not making cleaning up after herself a priority. And she's also talking about keeping up with getting Botox. Anton's already looking at her like, girl, we're gonna have to budget really well for that. But now they're having a little disagreement on if they should have a joint and their own separate bank accounts, with Anton thinking that it doesn't make sense to have both, which I personally disagree with because I think it's always good to have your own thing. We switch over to Edmund and Calibria. His mom comes over to visit. She's getting along with Calibria. She's excited to potentially have a new daughter-in-law, but she comes right out and tells her that he does have a problem with opening up about certain things, so she hopes that he does with Calibria. Joe does eventually apologize to Madison because he knew he was on some BS the other day. Let's be real. Megan's family meets Jordan, which is a very special moment for her considering her dad had passed away a little while ago, and he'd actually passed away from type 1 diabetes, which is also what Jordan's son Luca has as well. Because of how quickly her parents fell in love, Megan's mom and sister are pretty on board with what's happening here as long as he treats her right. Nick shows off his place to Annie along with all his medals and stuff from his accomplishments like running marathons and whatnot. But now they're running into the problem of who's going to move where, because right now they're technically living a little ways from each other. Madison finally meets Joe's folks. His sisters had quite a few questions about how Joe had treated her in the pods and what they connected on, and also what made them feel ready to make this leap into marriage. Of course, they had these cute little answers, but I'm still pretty unsure about them, to be honest. Now, when Allie meets Anton's friend and the friend's girlfriend, that's when she hears about him and his friend when they were single. But when his friend had got into a relationship a few months before, they did decide to stop all that. Now, Allie really didn't like the sound of that, and she wanted to talk to Anton later about that as well. Now, in our next episode, we unfortunately get a sneak peek of what Jordan does in the mornings, which is chugging blended up chicken. Thank God it's cooked. But yeah, even Megan is looking at him pretty disgusted. But I have to say I have seen people consume some crazy things in the name of protein, but never that. That's a new one for me. Allie is out here secretly annoyed by Anton drinking mimosas and champagne in the mornings, and Nick is helping Annie put stuff up around her salon space. Edmund and Calibria seem to be having fun with him teaching her how to skate because that's one of his favorite pastimes, and it seems like I could say the same for Madison and Joe. Now, Megan and Jordan have started looking at some homes, and Megan gives her realtor a range of about $1.5 million to $2 million as their budget, and I think in that moment Jordan kind of knew exactly who he was messing with. because I think he knew that she made good money, but he didn't quite know how good. But the first house they looked at was just a tad bit too big. Now, Annie meets Nick's family and his mom gets right to it, and she asks her how they've been dealing with disagreements, and Annie says that they agree with all the big stuff but find themselves arguing over little stupid things. And I would definitely agree with that assessment, because Annie, like she said, is a little over the top. His mom says that Nick is the fixer usually, and it's hard for him to talk about what's bothering him because he's so worried about everyone else. But the way he handled Kate back in those pods, I'm not too sure about that. So everyone meets up to see everyone in person, including those that are single and didn't get engaged in the pods. Allie tells the girls that she doesn't like the fact that Anton also used to go to the strip clubs and he currently drinks a beer or two every morning when he gets off from work. But I mean, to me, it doesn't really seem all that serious since it's just a beer and it's not like he's drinking the whole pack each day, you know? And also, when is he even supposed to drink and relax when he literally works the night shift? I just think she's being a little dramatic, but that's just me. Patrick arrives and everyone was curious if Casey was going to show up, but according to Patrick, she pretty much just played him, took the ring, and they haven't spoken since, even though she claimed that she wanted to keep dating him outside of the show. But I think we all knew that that was a lie. Brendan walks in and Annie brings up that he was all about her in the pods, but he wasn't really showing any of that interest when he saw her in person. Like, he basically had no interest in talking to her. And I understood what she was saying, but at the same time, it was like, aren't you engaged? Why do you even care, you know? But she had even gone over to introduce herself, and he showed way more interest in talking to the other guys there than her. I have a feeling it might have been because he wasn't all that physically attracted to her after seeing her in person. And I'm not saying she's unattractive by any means, but people have been low-key coming for this girl with these comparisons online. But in terms of Brandon, I just think that he wasn't attracted at all when he saw her, so any interest that was there was just gone at that point. Now, Mike gets there and he pulls Megan aside to talk to her for a bit. He apologizes for basically pressing her for an answer about who she was choosing and how emotional she got. And he actually admits to being cocky, and I'm like, you know, at least he's sort of self-aware, but he's gonna need to work on that for sure. But Megan definitely believes that she made the right decision choosing Jordan. Patrick, on the other hand, does get a chance to talk to Anna, and he brings up that he was ready to take things to the next level if she had stayed. But at the same time, she brings up a really good point, because you can't really say that after proposing to someone else right after. Your words hold no weight at that point when you do that. It just seems like you just make hasty and erratic decisions, which are definitely red flags to me. Now, everything is good and everyone's having a good time until Annie decides to say that she thinks Nick is perfect, which definitely made me gag a little bit, not gonna lie. But when Edmund decided to say, and I quote, "Just to be able to hear that would be crazy," Calibria heard that and everything was donezo. She was looking at him like, are you comparing our relationship to theirs? Admire, don't compare. Then she starts running on about him bringing up their problems in front of everyone and how he should have said something in private, and it was just crazy. Like, girl, first of all, this man wasn't even talking to you. Secondly, he didn't say anything or compare anyone to y'all. You were the one that was clearly insecure. And thirdly, he didn't bring up anything. He was actually trying not to embarrass you. If she had taken a second to step out of her anger and really analyze the situation, she would have figured that out. But it's crazy how she said that he's starting with her and how he started this, and this man literally did nothing. It was just wild. She was clearly very triggered. She walks off to go to the bathroom, clearly pissed. And I'm sure if Edmund said anything else that night, he would have had his head bitten off. But moving on to Kate, she and Nick end up having a chat and he apologizes about how he didn't clearly tell her that he had developed a strong connection with both her and Annie and how it was really tough for him to say so. But I kind of call BS on that because he barely showed any romantic interest in Annie before Kate had said that she wasn't really interested in becoming religious. But who cares at this point? He's already engaged to Annie. But Annie does find out that Nick was kind of playing them both by saying things here and there to kind of keep them interested in him. And now Annie feels a kind of way. But Joe was pretty vocal about not liking Nick either. And I'm like, Joe, you really can't talk because you were in hot water just a couple days ago. You aren't that likable at the moment either. Okay. Now, there seems to be some issues between Allie and Anton because she's been running her mouth, of course. But I just personally didn't really see that many major issues with him, to be honest. But hey, I guess you don't like what you don't like, you know? But anywho, that's going to be it for now. Stay tuned for part 3, where we dive even further into the before the wedding drama. Of course, you guys are welcome to share your thoughts on these last 2 episodes down in the comments, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.